Happy Tuesday! My name is Alan.
My name's Nick.
And welcome into the dungeon.
So we done did it.
We did it again.
This time it was a mini series, just 5 juicy episodes. But here we are. We've managed to prove, I think, to some extent that you can roleplay in your favorite tabletop games. So for this series, as we set out in our episode 0, we set out to broaden our horizons. We played a full-blown party game of D&D 5th edition as a duet. We then delved into a choose-your-own-adventure series, which was written for a solo player, and we did that as a duet. Now we thought, what else can we do before we go back to D&D? Let's try and add some role-playing to board games, because as we said in episode 0, it's something that we normally do anyway when we're playing board games with our friends and family and having a few drinks. It just comes out naturally.
We tried to keep it varied, so we chose a mixture of versus board games and collaborative games as well. And we sought to add an element of roleplay into each of them. For some of them, we did create detailed character backstories and the backstory to the game itself. Some of the games had backstories already included.
Yeah, like Love Letter, I think.
Yeah.
They had, I think it was not the princess, was it the queen who had been arrested for treason?
That's right.
And I think Pandemic had a very brief intro, and then we decided to expand that as well.
Yes, because I feel like if you're going to roleplay, it's best to have some backstory as well, so you can really get into the mood of your character and maybe what he would act like. It was very much, I wouldn't say a last-minute thing, but we didn't prepare the backstories with weeks in advance and we studied the character or anything like that. It
was pretty much last minute.
Yeah.
It was like, we normally record at 9-10 p.m, and I think it was like frantically at 7 p.m.
Yeah, most of the times. Most of the characters we did like that. And then once we got here, we started playing off each other and getting into the details of our character and how our characters would roleplay.
So the first game we played was Love Letter. I think that one, certainly for me, was really fun to add the roleplay element into it. And I really liked how we sort of played the cards as if we were using those people to try and deliver our letters of love to the princess.
Also, we chose each game thinking that it would work with roleplay. Like, we didn't go for a game that straight off the bat we might have felt wouldn't work, so we had that in our advantage. But I did feel that Love Letter from the beginning was going to be one of the easier ones to roleplay. But then it became quite tricky, because it was a bit hard, because you were playing the character we had made. I was Cassian and you were Lysandra. So we were role-playing as our characters, but our characters aren't really part of the game. The cards are the game, so the prince, the priest, the baron, the king, all of those are the actual characters that appear in the game. So we had to role-play those too. And I found it became a bit hard to explain how the game was being played, because at the end of the day, we also needed to explain what was going on clearly on a podcast, which was quite challenging in of itself. But on top of that, we had to add the roleplay element to it. And then listening back, I realized that perhaps we had gone about it wrongly, in the sense that we did the roleplay and then explained the cards. Perhaps it would have been best for that one to explain the card we were playing, explain the hand we were dealing, and then do the roleplay, so that the listeners had a bit more context. I kept doing that for the second game, Castle Panic, where I roleplayed and then described what I had drawn and what I had played, whilst you for Castle Panic started describing it first and then roleplaying, which made it more clear for me.
Those interactions, though, between those cards and the characters we played were hilarious for me as I was listening back and editing. The shriveling prince beckoning to every one of Cassian's demands, the two priests sort of trying to outwit each other. It was really enjoyable. And then I liked, when we had to discard cards and the way we sort of played it as if, their attempts had been foiled. And I particularly enjoyed the ones with Cassian where he was promptly scolding every minion that he sent.
Yeah, it was also quite entertaining to see how the narrative followed, or how the game played out followed the narrative a bit. And at the end, I was already seducing the princess because I held the princess card and I was winning at the time. So it kind of all fell in place.
That ended in a victory for Cassian and Al, much to Lysandra's disappointment. We also had, I think it was 7 love letters prepared as well for the game, but we realized that it was going on a bit long as we were, role-playing and explaining the different cards. So I think we only played up to 3.
Yeah, the best of 3 rounds we did.
So yeah, if you want to know what else was written in those professions of love, drop us a comment on our Discord and perhaps we'll share them there. We then moved on to a different game, and that's one way of putting it. It was completely different. It was a collaborative game, and that was Castle Panic. A game that we were, I think, quite confident before starting that we were going to win.
Yeah, it's a game I really enjoy, and I own it myself, and I've won quite a few times, playing with my son as well, and we've won quite a few times. But it very much depends on the luck of the draw, literally, like what kind of tokens you take out and at what times. And I think for me, that turn where I kept bringing tokens out that summoned more minions and more minions, that ended it for us.
Yeah, that and those useless blue guards, I think it was, the blue guards and the blue archers.
Yeah, they kept coming back with other non-useful cards. That was a cool way that we started describing the action, the roleplay there. Like, we could discard a card and bring one back, and it was like we were sending the men to search for other recruits or reinforcements or whatever. So that was a cool twist to the roleplay, I felt.
And that one as well, we actually did quite detailed characters. I was Astinus, a retired archer. You were, I can't remember the name of the character now, but it was like a Roman one, wasn't it?
It was Gregorius.
So yeah, it's something along those lines.
Can't remember.
And, we had these personas and these detailed backstories, and then that was an example of where we sort of fleshed out the introduction to the game and the world with, I think it was the Forest of Mentula we were in.
Yeah.
And we were sat in the Angry Friar, talking about rumors of monsters in the forest. So that was really nice. But in terms of roleplay, I think of the 5 games we played, that was one of 2 that I struggled with a bit. Because unlike, something like Forbidden Island and Pandemic, we weren't playing out actions, we were playing cards. Perhaps similar to Love Letter, but in Love Letter I found it a bit easier because we'd already sort of predetermined that we were going to be playing those cards as, these are our servants or our confidants that we're sending the letters with. With Castle Panic, we were essentially like giving instructions to different soldiers and different troops, and I struggled a bit at the beginning. I think as the game went on, it got easy in a sense, but then it also got quite difficult because so many of the cards were the same. So it was like, well, how can I now
do you keep it fresh, and keep it engaging? And also, this game was more dependent on visuals than perhaps Love Letter, because we had the board and we had to describe whether goblins and orcs and all that were appearing. So it was harder to jump between roleplay and actually describing what was going on the game. But I think we fared pretty well and had a good shot at it. I think it worked.
Yeah, I think we were like, 2 tokens, I think, away from victory there.
Yeah, I think there was not many monsters left on the board, and we were 1 or 2 good cards away from actually being able to defend the remaining towers. But we just had, like you'll notice, or you may have noticed during the whole season of Can You Roleplay, we were just unlucky with the draws.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, even with those boulders, I've played that game before with you as well, and sometimes the boulders take out a number of monster tokens on their path. Or it comes out in an area where there's no tower, so it just rolls across the other side of the map. Every single time the boulder came out, it was like no damage to troops, and then we were utterly screwed.
Yeah, and then you get cards like the plague cards or tokens, where you lose perhaps the archers. And no one has archers, so it's a waste of a token. Or when the monsters have to move from the red to the green or move clockwise, all red monsters move clockwise. Maybe there's no monsters on the red ring. So again, those tokens would be useless and wouldn't affect you. But we didn't have that kind of luck this time around. And then there's an expansion, which I think we mentioned as well, the Wizard's Tower.
Oh, yeah.
That makes the game way, way harder. I've played that as well, but never beaten it. So I don't think we should try that one as a podcast episode.
No, we need to get a win under our belt first. We then moved on to Forbidden Island, another co-op game, and unfortunately another loss. But before we go on to the actual game and the mechanics and how that all worked, in terms of roleplay, that was one that I really enjoyed doing. We wrote really detailed backstories. We sort of explained a bit about the lore of the island, which was actually in the instruction manual, but then we fleshed it out. We had the retired Reginald Forthright, fortunately not retired by choice.
No.
And seeking a shot at glory again. And we had Boomer, the eccentric helicopter pilot. Now, in this game, for me, the roleplay was really easy to do because you were literally describing what your character was doing. So you were shoring up, you were traveling across the island, you were using sandbags, you were searching for treasure. So that for me came about really naturally, really easily. And I think that element of the turns went by quite quickly. And, much like Castle Panic, which had a board, I found it easier to describe what was going on when we were doing our turns. Perhaps in part because we sacrificed like 90% of the island and just focused on
one segment.
The core.
To be fair, it was just saying, well, this tile is adjacent to me. Now I'm shoring up this tile, which is diagonally. So we never perhaps gave them the full picture of the board, but it's what it is. It's,
Yeah, well, we were describing, like the north side, the south side. But
yeah, but you have, I think, as a listener, because we have the bigger picture, because we were sitting here seeing it all, and perhaps even listening back, we still have the bigger picture because we experienced it. But as a listener, perhaps they had to fill in certain gaps there, but I don't think it would have made much of a difference to the listening experience, because you can follow along, I feel, without having to know exactly how the board is set up. As long as you know what the characters are doing in their turns and all that. But yeah, I agree, that one was easier to roleplay as it was describing your actions.
And as we said before, another loss. And that one was a really bitter pill to swallow, because I think we were just like one turn away from...
That was close. I think we had the last remaining card for the lion relic, I think it was. Because we had all other 3 relics. And we just had to swap it. But, like, immediately in my turn, I drew the flood card. And it was game over. We didn't lose because we lost the Fool's Landing where we had to leave from. Or because we lost most of the island. Because the actual marker on the water rising tracker went to the max. And that was game over. We drew all the flood cards, basically. And we were a few moves away from winning that one as well. So unfortunate. We did at least survive. Our characters survived. Because we thought, well, if you have Sheila, which was your trusty helicopter.
Yeah, why wouldn't you get on it?
Yeah, and Fool's Landing hadn't sunk. It made sense that we could run away with at least 3 treasures, and the other one just sunk with the island. But at least we had 3 treasures. So maybe we can explore the Forbidden Desert or any of the others from the franchise, maybe in the future.
So yeah, Reginald may have another shot at restoring, perhaps not his glory, but towards the end of it, it was more about the riches more than the glory and that lavish lifestyle that he had grown so accustomed to.
Yeah, he didn't give a toss about the channel anymore or his prestige. He just wanted to live a fat and lavish life.
Well, at least he took 3 of the treasures with him.
Yeah, I'm sure we can sell those.
We then went back to PvP, or versus game. And this one was actually a present from you many years ago now. And that was Shay Geek. This one I had high hopes for, because it seemed like a no-brainer to roleplay. We were basically just role-playing roommates, so on paper it seemed really easy to roleplay. But then, much like Castle Panic, we found ourselves having to describe not necessarily actions that we were taking, but in some cases really random events. And some uncomfortable ones as well, I must say, when I was editing late into the night with my noise-cancelling headphones on.
Yeah, I need to apologize for my actions. There
was a lot of nookie cards.
I mean, it's what the hand dealt me literally.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. But yeah, because I couldn't remember the game. I had played it a long time ago and hadn't played it since. So I couldn't remember exactly what the game was like. I remember you were pretty excited, like you're saying, about it because you thought it would work well with the roleplay. And then I was like, I need to brush up on this. So I started looking at the rules, and then I watched the series, the Will Wheaton series. Wheaton, the Tabletop series, and they play it there. And I was thinking that, I don't know, I didn't feel it was going to be an easy one.
I mean, that wasn't the best episode, to be fair, either, on Tabletop.
No, but having read the instructions as well, like the way they were describing moves, I was a bit hesitant as to how we were going to roleplay that one. I thought it was going to be hard. Perhaps not as challenging as it ended up being, but yeah, and I think at the end of the day, we made it work. I haven't heard it back, that one, to be honest. I might have to.
Make sure you hear it with headphones and not on your speakers with the kids around.
Yeah, that most definitely isn't a PG episode. It's like 18 plus.
Yeah, that brought the scores level as well. So it was one apiece.
Yeah.
And then 2 losses each.
Yeah, you were way ahead of me for the whole of the game.
There was a point where it seemed as if you were going to catch up.
Turn it around, yeah. But no.
But no, my shitty job as a research subject was paying good money at the end of the day. And again, it's one of those games where I think like 90% of it is the luck of the hand rather than what you do.
Yeah, and I think that if you play with more people, then there's more like crossfire, for lack of a better term, where people might play a card that messes your strategy up or does something negative to your play, whereas it only relied on me to do that, and maybe I didn't have the cards to do it. So
our final game in this series was another co-op, our final chance at redemption, but sadly we were again defeated, and this one was a particularly sore subject for me. I remember having to take a moment before we recorded the outro because I was seriously annoyed. I think we were quite literally like one move.
Yeah.
So like one action away from winning.
Yeah.
Not even one turn.
No.
One action.
One action. If we had one more action, or we were one step closer to the city we were supposed to research the QI in, then we would have won the game there. But we were one city too far.
Yeah, and there was one mechanic in that game that really irked me, particularly after having played Forbidden Island so recently as well. And that was the sharing information. Like in Forbidden Island, as long as you were both on the same tile, you could exchange any information. Like, why wouldn't you? In Pandemic, as if the game isn't hard enough as it is, not only did you both have to be together, which is already a challenge, especially when you're considering it's the whole world. This isn't an island, this is the entire planet. But then you had to specifically meet up in the exact same city to share information about that city. It's like, Pandemic set in a modern sort of setting. Why couldn't I mean, even if it wasn't like current day and maybe this was set like pre-emails, just pick up the phone. Send the bloody
pigeon.
I wasn't going to go that far back. I was going to say a telegram or something,
fax.
or fax, or like it's sharing information. Like I understand the being together as a mechanic, but if I've got information on Cairo as an example, and I want to give that card to Al, why do we both have to be in Cairo? Can't we just both meet up in London or in Shanghai or wherever it was we were? No, we both had to traverse the entire bloody map to exchange information to then go back. It was an unnecessary hassle, I think.
I suppose it's to do with the actual mechanics, right? Maybe they want to make it much more difficult to win the game, much harder, and maybe that's one way of doing it, one way of balancing out. I've played the Cthulhu edition, which is like Pandemic, but
yeah, I haven't played that, but I've heard it's brutal.
That's like you start losing. Like here, at least, there's a few diseases already spreading, but you feel like you're in control in the first round. In that game, it was, what the hell is going on? Like, you start losing, literally. It's like a frantic struggle to do something, but it's like you're already in despair as the game starts. It's ridiculous. I think we lasted, 4 or 5 rounds at most. It was ridiculous. It was we never had the upper hand there at all.
I mean, the guys you played with, the owner of the game, I think, told you it had it for years and still hadn't beaten the game.
Yeah, it still hadn't beaten it. So crazy. It'd be cool to try it once.
Yeah,
and
I've
see if we
actually
can beat
got,
it.
and I think you've got it as well, Pandemic Iberia,
Yeah.
which is set in the part of the world where we live.
Mm.
And I'm not going to lie, there was 2 reasons. One was because our hometown is on the map, so I was like, gotta get it.
Yeah.
But then the second was the artwork was
Pretty good.
amazing for
Yeah.
me as well. So
Yeah, better than the original one.
yeah, 100%. And it's sort of set in the times of the Black Plague, I think, or the Spanish flu.
Yellow fever, yeah.
So yeah, you had to build like water streams and I think it's train tracks to help you move from one place to another. So that could be something we revisit.
Yeah. We don't have to do accents or anything. We can use our own.
Yeah, we can talk normally because
Yeah.
that would be the accent that people from that area would have.
Yeah.
In terms of roleplay, again, because we were describing actual actions like we did with Forbidden Island, it's worked really well for me. The fact that we had built, or rather written, some really detailed character stories really helped get into, like, well, how would this person react in the circumstances? And then my favorite parts were those news bulletins. We decided, like, well, how are we going to roleplay the infections of the cities? And we decided to go with I2TD News.
Yeah. Newsflash.
With Willie Holden.
Willie Host.
Oh, sorry, that was it. Willie Host. Sorry, my mind was going back to Shay Geek there. And John Bishop from London, the London studio there.
Yeah. I2TD News is international.
London and the US of
Yeah.
A. The world building that we did as well, between I2TD News, the backstories of the characters, and then that multi-billionaire, Elon Musk, I think it was.
Yeah, Elon Musk. I wonder where I got the inspiration for that.
But yeah, that potentially gives us a segue to if we ever play
We
a
talked about
second season of Can We Roleplay? And, I think you mentioned something about if you were rich enough and fortunate you could go to Mars.
Yeah.
So perhaps Kato and Edward get on one of those rockets and we have to play Terraforming Mars.
That would be cool. I've never played that game, but I've always wanted to.
Yeah, same here. I think it came out, towards the end of my mega obsession with tabletop games. And I mean, it's not that obsession has ended. It's just that I became a father. So there was a hell of a lot less time
and space, because we were running out of space in our respective homes to store all these board games.
Yeah, they take up a lot of shelf space, and we don't live in mansions yet.
Not yet.
So that was the 5 games we played. During them, we actually got to play a minimum of 5 characters, 6 if you include the news presenters, and really more if you include all the cards in Love Letter as well. What was your favorite one to play?
Probably Cassian, because I was just free to do what I pleased, because he was a bit of a dick.
Quite literally.
Yeah. But yeah, probably I had fun with him, being a dick. Because I'm not normally a shitty person in real life. I try not to be. So it was like freeing to be able to just mess around with everyone.
It reminded me of a certain character as well. It was almost like watching Gaston from Beauty and the Beast, totally unleashed in that world.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it was brilliant. And I mean, in that particular episode as well, I couldn't wait for you to say as we delved, because I was bursting with excitement because I was going to say Into the Princess, because Cassian had won the game.
Yeah, I could see you like sitting on your hands like a nervous little child when he's about to open a present. And I was like, what's wrong with him? Then suddenly you burst out with that. That was good. What was your favorite character to play?
Oof. I think I'm going to say John Bishop, the presenter.
Really? Okay.
I really enjoyed those news segments. I really liked sort of throwing in, bits of what was happening around the world. I think we mentioned that the football match between Argentina and Brazil had been postponed.
Oh, yeah.
Then, like we were being criticized, or rather they were criticizing it wasn't
CBC,
the WHO, was
right?
it? The CDC and on social media, and there were riots about, and, calling for people to resign. I really enjoyed role-playing that part. If we're talking actual characters to play, I really enjoyed playing Boomer and the interplay between Boomer and Reginald.
So of all the games we played and all the roleplay, what was your standout moment of this mini series.
I don't know if it qualifies as a standout moment, but I'm going to go for the moments that I laughed the most, and I think we had to edit it out. And that was in Shay Geek, which was probably my least favorite game to play, but certainly the moment that I laughed the loudest, which was when you threw me that curveball and your character sort of put on Dead or Alive and turned bouncing breast mode on before playing the Nookie card.
Yeah. Okay, that's a weird favorite moment, but yeah.
What about yourself?
I think, to be honest, even though we lost the game, Forbidden Island, when Boomer and Reginald defeated, but still with fighting them, were able to lift off from the island and escape. I don't know, it was a kind of bittersweet. It wasn't a victory, but it wasn't a defeat. We were going back to come back and fight another day. So, it was slightly poetic. I don't know, I enjoyed that moment.
Yeah, in terms of story, that's the one I enjoyed the most.
Mm-hmm.
What was your favorite game from the 5 we played then? As a game and as a roleplay experience?
For me, as a game, well, I've said it before, Castle Panic is one of my favorite ones. But I don't know, I enjoy Love Letter. It's a quick fire game. It's easy to grasp. It's easy to play. It's an easy game to carry around and show people. I enjoyed that game, really. It was fun. And probably it's one I enjoyed role-playing the most as well. I don't know, I just like being a dick in roleplay, apparently.
I remember a certain fighter in a D&D campaign. Had very similar traits to Cassian. Yeah, I'd probably agree with you with both of those, actually. In terms of favorite game of the 5 we've played, I mean, I really do like Pandemic as a collab game and Forbidden Island. But for the same reasons you've said, I mean, Love Letters, whenever we hold game nights or, even if it's just with my wife and we say, let's play a couple of board games, we always start with Love Letter because it's quick, it's easy, it's fast-paced, it's entertaining. If you're having a drink, you naturally slip into a roleplay anyway as you're playing the cards. And from the roleplay element as well, it's the one I enjoyed playing the most in terms of the story, the interactions between all the different characters.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. It's also perhaps the game where we roleplayed the most, and there were more interactions. It wasn't just our main characters and explaining or giving orders. It was more of a back and forth with different personas.
And sticking with the same sort of theme, but looking at the least favorite board game and from a roleplay perspective, I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. I suspect it's probably going to be the same for you as well.
Yeah.
So this bit's going to be a bit boring. But, in terms of game as a 2-player, I think Shay Geek was a bit weak.
Yeah.
I think it's better for sure with
more people, for sure. Yeah.
I would recommend playing that with 4 people at least, not just 2 for the reasons Al highlighted before. And from a roleplay perspective, it was quite hard to get into.
Yep. Yeah, it was difficult because the cards are disjointed and there's no narrative going on. It's just 2 guys going to work and then coming back. Not even going to work, because, I mean, the turn implies that you work and you get money, so then you can spend the money. So as a roleplay, we had to say, well, okay, we wake up, we go to work. But if you go to work in your turn and then you come home, I have to be home already because it doesn't make sense if I then leave for work unless I work a night shift. But then we're not going to have interactions in between us. So it's a bit awkward to roleplay. But yeah, I agree with you. The least liked game, perhaps even if we played it as 4, it perhaps would be my least liked game of the 5 we played, and the least I liked to roleplay in also. Maybe also because I went a bit overboard with the descriptions of...
It's all about the Nookie.
The Nookie, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, overall as a series, I think it was really fun to record. Not so fun to edit with all the rules and stuff after spending, 20 odd episodes doing Lone Wolf, which is a walk in the park. But it's something I think I would want to come back to at some point, like a little mini film between larger campaigns. Is there any games that you think that perhaps we haven't played that should make Season 2 of Can We Roleplay?
Well, we did mention Terraforming Mars. That could be a good one. Don't really know how it plays, so we would have to look that up. But it would follow nicely from Pandemic, as we mentioned. Also, Tenlosol, our good friend Anthony, mentioned that perhaps Risk would be a good game to play.
Oh yeah, playing the general and sending your troops off.
I've never played Risk, to be honest.
What?
No.
That's a classic and a staple in any collection.
I've never played it, so I don't know if it would work or not. But yeah, we could try that one out. And for me, I'd say Catan could be interesting.
Yeah, actually, we have role-played in Catan before.
We have, haven't we?
Yeah, I remember, I think it was the first time we ever played. And you got really possessive over a certain sheep.
Yeah, and then it eventually came back to me, something like that. Yeah, someone took it off me. Someone stole it.
I mean, I've played it on the iPad. And there is an element, well, I wouldn't say role play, but you know, the other players sort of talk to you in character as they're trading. And
yeah, imagine, I don't know if it's a 2-player game, maybe you can play 2 players, but
there must be a variant.
Yeah, I imagine you can role play, because it could be like loads of 2 different settlements, like, you know, bartering against each other and threatening each other when there's a robber or the robber comes in. I don't know. There could be moments of role play there.
Yeah, I definitely think that would work. I've got a few that I would be excited to try. One, I'm not sure if it's a 2-player game or if there's a 2-player variant. I mean, you can correct me. If not, I'm sure there's probably a variant online. I think in terms of roleplay possibilities, Escape from Atlantis would be quite chaotic, and we may need to bring in a 3rd or 4th player if there's no variant. But, you know, I'm sort of imagining trying to get your people off the island and all those, you know, sharks and krakens and
the sea monsters.
The sea monsters panic, you know, taking over ships, and I think there's a lot of scope there for roleplay.
I think you can play it as a 2-player game.
I mean, if we ever invited a 3rd or 4th player as well for a mini series like this, Sheriff or Nottingham has to be up there.
Yeah,
we always roleplay in that. And then there's a random one that I'm not entirely convinced would work, but it sort of popped into my head as you were talking. And it's similar to Love Letter in the sense that it's a very quick, easy game to get into. There's a lot, you know, it's fast-paced. But I've got this vision of playing a disgraced sumo wrestler that's lost a tournament and is drowning his sorrows in sushi as we play Sushi Go.
Yeah, that would be good, actually. Like, it'd be hard to roleplay, I think, because
you know, you'd be role-playing grabbing things off the conveyor belt and shoving in your mouth more than anything.
I don't know. We could try it. We could definitely try it. But it seems like a really hard one to pull off. I don't know.
It's one I'd certainly want to try, or at least explore a little bit. But yeah, if there's any games that you think would fit this sort of format, or that you would like to see if we can roleplay in them, drop us a comment on your podcast player of choice on Instagram, Twitter, Discord, you know, wherever you find your podcasts and wherever you can find us.
The wait is finally over for those of you that are enjoyers of D&D content. For next week will be the beginning of the new campaign.
Ooh.
D&D 5th edition. Watch out for episode 0, which will be the small introduction into what we are going to do with the new season of D&D. What we'll be playing and all that. So look forward to that one. But for tonight, that's been all. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And we hope to catch you next time as we delve into the dungeon.